We'll call our meeting back to order. This is a continuation meeting from our meeting last Tuesday. We'd like to welcome everybody here. Glad you are in attendance. So we reconvene. The first thing on the agenda is an item we did not get to the last meeting was Mr. Richard Leitner's here, and we're to consider a requested tax release. So Mr. Leitner, if you would please, sir.
Ms. Corbin, I believe it's a tax refund, which it comes under a different group of laws. But this is on a business, and the owner sporadically lists the business over the years. Some years he lists, some years he doesn't. But under North Carolina General Statutes 105-317 1C, the taxpayer who owns personal property has, within 30 days date of notice of aid, has the right to come in and try to get adjustment or whatever. This goes back to 2010 and 11. So, you know, the 30 days is well come and gone, so he has no really recourse because he didn't notify the county until a week or so ago. So I recommend that we would not grant a refund based on the general statutes.
That's a decision that the board has to make and not Richard. It's the reason it's here.
Okay. Yes. We have to decide not to do it.
Or to do it, as the case.
So we'd have to decide to do it.
Either way. It's your decision.
Decide to do it, Richard.
Well, if you decide to do it and another taxpayer questions that and it shouldn't have been done, then you're personally liable for it.
The five of you are individually and collectively responsible for granting any refund that would be inappropriate or illegal.
Motion to disallow the refund request, Mr. Chairman.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leitner. Thank you. We have the, Lori, I think you got this consideration of the audit contract for fiscal year 2012-2013.
Yes, thank you. Last fiscal year, I brought to the board a 3-year renewal of our current audit contract with Martin Stearns and Associates, and the board approved that. But the local government commission still requires that on an annual basis, the audit contract is brought before you, along with the peer review letter of the firm for your approval. So tonight, I'm just asking for your motion second to approve this audit contract.
I would entertain that motion. Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the approval of the audit contract for fiscal year 2012-2013? We do have a complete copy of that in your packet. Any discussion?
How much longer can Martin Starnes do ours? For it?
How much longer?
How many years?
Right now, last year we agreed to do at least 3 more years.
With it.
With them.
Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. We have also 2 budget amendments that you have in your packet. I believe those are numbered 111 and 112. Is that correct, Lori?
That is correct.
And I think it's fairly self-explanatory, but we need to, or you need to add anything to
I don't have anything to add. I'll be glad to entertain any questions.
their,
I don't have mine with me, but you will see.
one social services.
Yes. Because Jane would like to speak to that, exactly what that is. It's TANF money, temporary assistance for families. We've been asking for.
We have budgeted for the cut that did not come in this fiscal year thus far.
Did they get the thus far?
Well, sequestration may change that, but we do have the money currently in the funding authorization, so we're going to correct that.
Any other questions or discussion about the 2 budget amendments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. We also
Mr.
had...
Chairman, The next item on there, item number 5, emergency services equipment. We have another item that may, if there's some discussion there, may take a little bit of time, but we have another item that's come up recently that the county attorney and economic development director have been working on concerning approval for a grant for a business development project in the county. We can wait till later to do that, but I think members of the board have been briefed on it, and the county attorney has put together some information on it. I think Jenkins is here in case you have any questions, so.
Jimmy, you probably put that on the agenda. I know, okay.
If we do it now, I don't think it'll take much time.
Yeah.
This is in accordance with the county has already adopted a grant incentive program for expanding in new businesses. And this is in accordance with the already established and approved grant procedures. And we do have some information that the county attorney put together for us concerning that. And the name of this project, as he will tell you, is called Project Steel, which is not his real name.
STEEL.
Yeah, 2 E's.
Tommy, if you want to come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. As you know, we've been working on a economic development project, and the county does have an economic development grant program. We've got a project that we've been working on that's with at this point, confidential buyer for a facility in Franklin. They meet the criteria of the grant program, and in front of you have the grant program in front of you, what criteria is and what they're meeting. Basically, the grant runs out to about $28,000 paid out for 4 years, and $7,000 a year. And there's a job creation. It's based on job creation, capital investment, and wage needs to be above the wage standards that the North Carolina Department of Commerce finance.
And Tommy, I know we can't say who the buyer is. Can we say?
I think at this point, the appropriate way to refer to the entity applying for this is Project Steel, with the understanding that's a code name, with the express understanding that the identity of that entity will be disclosed at a later date. This is a preliminary step in the economic grant process. Basically, they have approached the EDC here in Macon County and said, what, if anything, can you do? In a nutshell, Tommy Jenkins has said we've got an economic grant incentive program, and I think we can probably do this, but it's subject to the commissioner's approval. And so what we've done here is we have memorialized what this business entity has indicated that it would be doing if it locates here in Macon County, and what Macon County would do for it if it did, and in fact did all those things that it represented that it would do. And that's the purpose of this letter here, is to attempt to do that. And as you can see from looking at the letter, there are a number of employees that would be added to the ranks of the employed here in Macon County. The wage would have to be above the median wage for Macon County. There would be employee benefits, including health benefits, and as you will note, there'll be a capital investment in excess of $4 million in the county. So basically, in exchange for those items, the county would be willing to make grant payments of $7,000 per year for 4 years in accordance with the grant guidelines that it had already established. Before doing that, however, if the commissioners are inclined to do that, the commissioners would first need to make a determination that the making of this grant would in fact either increase the population of Macon County, the taxable property in Macon County, or business prospects in Macon County. And I think, me having just read those things, I think it's fairly self-evident that it would do one or more of those things. So we would need a determination by this board that it would do those things if you're inclined to go with this grant proposal. And then, once that has been accomplished, then you would need to authorize Jack to deliver this letter to the project student.
Mr. Chairman, I think I was the only one left, Jack Horton and myself, around this table that when we implemented this, and this is exactly what we intended for it to do. We've tried to use it before. It has very strict guidelines, not only by statute, but by county standards to go by. But anytime we can hire 111 employees in Macon County, and they have to meet this every year. They have to meet the goals per year.
Well, in fact, in 5 and 4 years, we've got to have 131 employees, so it'll be growing.
Yeah. So with that,
That's all written in there, that we expect that as part of it. So I agree with Ronnie, I think it meets the criteria, and it's something we need to do. I was just questioning whether we will name the entities.
I think that will be forthcoming in the very near future.
I understand.
But the arrangements for that entity have not been finalized. Indeed, I think to some degree, they may be waiting on word for this to finalize arrangements.
so with that, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve the request for economic development grant as proposed, and give the county manager authorization along with the economic development coordinator.
I think part of your motion needs to state that we have determined it meets the criteria.
As set forth in this letter.
As set forth in this letter at 5 West Main Street.
Out of that.
And
What the man said. All right, we have a motion, Commissioner Haven, you seconded that. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion, which does include us determining the criteria and approving Jack to execute the letter in the grant?
I do have one question / comment. If I understand this right, they're gonna be paid first $7,000 before this fiscal year ends, is that correct?
That is correct.
So we need funding from somewhere.
We-
Are we gonna
we-
take it out of economic development?
That is my
It
understanding.
can come out of economic
We
development.
need that
reserve
motion,
or it can
please,
come out
to
of
transfer it
Tennessee.
from the economic development fund to the general fund.
Just include that in your motion, Mr. Bill.
I would include that these funds, the first 7,000 will be drawn from the economic development fund.
And understand, there's not actually any obligation to pay this money until a finalized agreement
Until they execute it.
is put together and really executed.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, covers all those things. Mr. Deputy, you have that down, I trust. Good. I'm not gonna state all that again. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none.
Second, 111 jobs in here, man, Bill, take collection up half the
Good. But this is a worthy way to spend the money, and I think a good expense to bring these jobs.
And this time, more than important than that, just anything that sets a little precedent, Tommy, that Macon County is willing to, if you can meet the criteria, we're willing to help as much as we can in North Carolina. By the statutes, we have to be government. So I think that's a really good point.
And I think it'd be appropriate at this time to commend Mr. Jenkins for his efforts here.
Yes, sir.
Knowing a little bit about the details of this situation, this has been a lot of hard work put in here and a lot of good work.
Well, frankly, it probably wouldn't have happened.
Well, if I could, Mr. Chairman, I want to caution that they're still in the negotiating stage. This is not.
If it's not, then that's right.
Let's make the best of it.
But I think the note is that Macon County did take a very active role in this situation, that everybody in the room probably knows what it is. I can't say it because Jessica will let me, but Macon County active role in this situation. I think that's been a good thing, a positive thing. Tommy Staley, as our county manager, has had the opportunity to meet. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Yes, sir. Jack, do you want to take the lead on the emergency services equipment?
Well, last meeting, we had a presentation from company on defibrillators, and David Key is here. And there was some discussion on how to acquire these. We're looking at the possibility of acquiring 12 defibrillators and 3 auto pulse machines as part of the same deal. There was some discussion on how to pay for that, whether that should be done now or we should wait till budget time, or pay out of fund balance, or do some sort of financing. And so in the interim, Lori Hall, our financial director, checked with some of our financial institutions to see what it would cost the county to go ahead and get enough money up front to buy all the equipment at one time, what the interest rate would be and what the terms would be. And so she asked, I think we had 3 different banks that gave us proposals on that. And this is basically to finance the net cost of $374,000, which would cover all that equipment if the board decides to buy all of it at one time. And finance it for 9-month financing, which doesn't require to go to the local government commission. The low, and I'll let Lori give you the details of it, but as you can see with the information that was in your agenda packet or your iPad, the lowest rate we got was from BB&T Government of Finance. BB&T basically said they would finance the $374 for the defibrillators, and the auto pulse was part of the deal, but basically it's for the defibrillators for 1.57%. Prepay anytime the board decides they want to pay it off. Instead of carrying out 4.5 years in financing, they can do that and it's a premium. Laura, you may want to add to that, but I think we had a couple of pretty low bids, but that was the lowest. And we've got several short-term financing situations with BB&T. They seem to be very good, especially in the supplemental finance section. But if the board decides to go ahead and allow us to purchase these machines, it would probably take some time before they were delivered, and most likely the first payment on this 4.5-year financing will not come until after the beginning of the next fiscal year, which will be in next year's budget. Lori may have some other additional information she can share with the board.
Thank you pretty much. Something there.
What would be a monthly payment, about $6,500 or something?
We'd pay it semi-annual. The semi-annual payments would be $39,029. So you're looking at $78,058 per fiscal year. Like Jack said, that wouldn't start till around September.
So you're looking at $78,000 for the
Yeah.
fiscal year.
$78,058 for the fiscal year.
And it would have to be programmed into next year's budget.
Right, we'd have to plug it in next year's.
If you remember, that's what I said the other night. I feel very strongly that when you have recurring, you have one-time expenses. We talked about this just to be clear. We talked about things like repairing the pool, like the Parker Meadows project. Those are one-time expenses, and you spend those one time in 4 years. So that's like we've done it here. But when you have something like this, these are recurring. These are recurring, whether on a 3-year cycle or a 5-year cycle. They're happening over and over. So I think it needs to be a part of the budget rather than to be some kind of one-time expenditure like we have on some of those big ticket items. I know sometimes folks get confused with those things, but it needs to be part of the budgeting process. It needs to be part of the, and I told David, I'm clearly not blaming David, that I had a job long, not blaming anybody, but things that are like this, we need to have on a rotating basis, because these meetings can tell you, I'm sure the need for these is not just come up right now. This has been, we've needed these for a while, and we'll need them again. And I said the other night, you know, $31,000 is a lot of money for a piece of equipment unless you're the one having a heart attack. So I understand that, I really do. I just think it needs to be a part of the budget process instead of a one-time expenditure. And if we want to do all of them to get this thing up to where it needs to be, I can support that, but I do think we need to, Jack, I'm agree with Jack, I think it needs to be what, budget for this year, and not a one-time contribution.
Will that 78,000 be in the EMS budget?
I think it will be. We'll normally, we put debt service in the EMS budget for these, or is that being a separate debt service budget?
It will be in the debt service fund, but it was a transfer from the general fund.
But if we can, a larger point, if we can come up with some kind of system, David, to whatever we've got coming up, let's come up with a replacement schedule. Like we did the entrances, like Roger, we do your patrol, don't come asking for 30 patrol cars. Let's do 6, like we did, you know. That's what I'm saying about this stuff. We're replacing 100% of them if we do this.
And what we need to do, in order to do that, we need to program in so much money each year in depreciation in order to replace these
Agreed.
when they wear out. So we can't wait until 5 years and then try to figure out some way to come up with money. So we need to, if you start off, even if you start off with all 12 of these, we need to start setting aside a little bit of money each year so that we can have a continuous replacement of these during the regular budget process and not have to have one big jump in budget or during the middle of the year. So, but in order to have it in the budget for next year, have those things in place and the payments to start next year, we have to start before that we actually get into next year's budget. The payments will be out of next year's budget, the 13, 14 year budget.
Is there a salary here?
No, that's going to be.
But Commissioner Tate or David may have some other information about that. Y'all had a pretty good demonstration, I think, last week on what machines do, and it's not just a machine that shocks your heart back into rhythm again. It does a lot of other things. So, we've got several people who actually work on the trucks who could probably tell you a little bit more about it.
Travis, have you seen these things? You know what we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
What do you think?
They're good. They're top of the line.
You think over the time you've been there, Travis, that if we could have had one of these, regardless of who it is, it might have, you can't never tell, but would they be more likely to survive a full cardiac arrest with one of these machines?
Personally, I think it comes down to reliability of them. You know, we do the best with what we've got. With the package that they put together, with all the bells and whistles that are on this particular machine, it makes our job so much easier. Instead of, you know, if we're having to work a cardiac arrest at the back of Bredhaven or inside someone's residence or what have you, and instead of having to drag everything we've got in the truck, we can pick up this one machine, and we've got so many tools there in one package.
Well, that's sort of my next question. Dave, you mind if we just ask these guys directly? I mean, they do this every day. Let's say that one option we had, we talked about was buying half of it. Let's buy half of it now, half of it next year. Is the equipment that you have that you would have with the older equipment, is it adequate to do what you would need to do, or would the people or would the ambulance necessarily be the one that responded to a cardiac arrest that had the new equipment? I mean, what kind of issues do we have there? You're gonna have the new equipment, half of it.
Right.
What issues does that create or not?
The issue that it would create is if we had all 5 frontline trucks, 3 in Franklin, 1 in Nantahala, 1 in Highlands. They are stocked with the new defibrillators. If we have the situation, which we have had in the past, where we have to call in backup crews, you know, there's times, there's no pattern to our calls. There's times that we are, you know, pretty calm for a while, and then all of a sudden it's wide open. That backup crews have to come in and staff our backup trucks for incoming calls. One of those calls being possibly a cardiac arrest, then you're working, as compared to what's on the frontline trucks, you're working with substandard equipment. Plus, like I say, you're in that position that if you have to, you know, you've got to go to the Sparks unit in Bredhaven, which if any of y'all are familiar, you know, it's all the way at the back through locked doors and everything else. You have to take everything basically in the truck to make sure you have it there, because it's not like, hey, run out to the truck and get this, and it's a 20-second trip. It would be nice, personally, it'd be nice if all 12 trucks were, you know, we try to keep every single truck stocked identically as best we can. But personally, I would hate to know that patient who is relying on that backup truck was not getting the same standard of equipment that, you know, that one of the frontline trucks.
Total interest we'd have to pay.
About 16,000.
16,000.
I think you do need to remember that as part of the offer that was made by the provider, they were offering, if we bought all of them, that you would receive some equipment that was roughly valued at 48,000. So, which is about 3 times the cost of the interest
Is
over.
that the total, or is that the total interest cost over the 59 months?
59 months, yes.
Yeah, 16,289.
Mr. Tate, I know you had some questions.
I think he answered the majority of them.
And the other notice, our old equipment, they're gonna give us a trade-in value of about 34,800 in as well. So the 34,800 has been deducted from the total price to arrive at the 374 that we finance, if you choose to do so.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Terry Bates is also here as EMS supervisor coordinator, so.
Mr. Bates, stand up, Mr. Bates, so we can see you. Can't see little Terry.
Well, Travis covered it pretty well on what he was saying. That piece of equipment has got, it covers your oxygen, takes your blood pressure, the temperature, your CO2 monitors in it, it even gives a printout of it. And it actually eliminates some of the equipment we got on the truck. So when you take it in, you're carrying, I think it weighs 11 pounds from correct. It takes,
And all that stuff you're talking about is in the suitcase.
well, no, some of it's separate. Some of it's separate. We call them our purple warnies. It's a separate piece with the CO2 monitor. We carry it in separate. And we wouldn't have to have that anymore. This one piece of equipment takes care of all
I
of
mean,
it.
the new, if you get the new.
Yes, we get the new thing.
All in that one.
Yeah. You don't need a blood pressure monitor. You don't need none of that.
Trevor, what impressed me, if you're in the back ambulance, is you boys have been, all of you boys have been giving CPR to somebody coming anywhere. I mean, I could come in a 4-laner coming from Highlands to Franklin and trying to do CPR and trying to keep somebody, you know, if you can get them to the hospital. I mean, that's what impressed me about this whole setup. It would do the compressions. It will tell you when, you know, it's amazing what it does. We saw it a long time ago out at the, you know, that's been around for a little while. So,
Well, if you just got one medic in the back, it basically got your heifer.
so tell us one more time, David, where these will be at. If we bought all 12, where would they be at when they come?
If we bought all 12, we'd have one in every truck. There'll be one in Terry's PRV and there's one in my truck.
You boys go out on call.
We have to. It's
Well,
necessary.
wouldn't they be in ambulances?
Well, I'm sorry.
There would be.
How would
There'll be
you
one
order
in
them
every
ambulance?
ambulance. There'll be one in every ambulance, one in Terry's PRV and one in my truck.
It's only 10 ambulances.
There's 10 ambulances plus 2. It's 12.
I think the fire department needs them. I mean, if it's up to me, we got unlimited money.
And when you're speaking of the CPR machine, I agree with you. I wish we could put one in every fire department. But we only have 3 of those, so we'll put one in each of the ambulance bases.
Like I said the other night, the fire department's the way there, the first responders are there before the ambulance is. Most of the time.
Yeah, if we had unlimited funds, we'd like to put one in every fire department.
What'd be wrong with these, ones that you're using already right now, instead of turning them to that $39,000, putting them in a fire truck?
Well, he's talking about 2 different things. He's talking about an auto pulse, which is the CPR machine. That's what you're talking about, the
Correct.
CPR machine.
That's the thing that did the compression.
Yeah, that's the
Defibrillators.
chest
But you're
compression.
getting the defibrillators to be turned back in, what I'm saying is what's wrong with putting them in a fire truck?
Well, the personnel that, although the personnel, some of the personnel that are in the fire departments are our employees at a volunteer basis, they're, as a fireman or a first responder, and they're not qualified to use that piece of machine.
Either one of them, defibrillator or.
They can use the auto pulse, but for a 12-liter manual defibrillator, first responders aren't supposed to be operating.
Fire departments have the AEDs.
Yeah, they have AEDs in place already.
How many functioning defibrillators?
I mean, functioning, we have 15. We have 17 in stock.
But that's part of this price, is it?
Is turning all 17 of those back in.
That was 30 watts.
So if we don't turn them off,
34,800.
if we don't turn all those in, then we're not going to get the same.
How much the resale value on those
But
things?
some of those are 15 years old, right there.
Some of them's 10, I think, right, David?
Yeah, we've got 2 of the M series that are still monophasic, which, I don't know if you remember when monophasic changed over to biphasic. So they're still old technology, and now we've been, yeah, they're old.
No penalty to pay the loan off early?
No, sir.
No closing costs?
No closing costs, no penalty to prepay, paid off early.
David, we're looking at financing these for about 60 months. Is that what's lifespan on these machines? Financing, if we do this longer than what the lifespan is.
Their recommendation is 5 to 7 years.
They sell the machines.
They sell the machines, and we have some that are a lot older than that. I can tell you that we will continue to maintain them better than our other machines maintained. We have a service contract with a provider that comes in and does preventive maintenance. And our guys will keep them up as best they can.
Have you spoken to any of the other departments that the boy from Zoll was talking about? How long they've had them, how they've held up?
The X series right now is the newest one on the market for Zoll. I know that Hendersonville has bought several. Graham County has bought several. Our Mama Helicopter has bought some. To my knowledge, that they're still in the training phase of getting their people trained on them, and they haven't been put into service yet.
So this piece of equipment is brand new?
It is the state-of-the-art, latest and greatest that Zoll has to offer.
How do those other 5 ambulances used? I understand it's the 5 frontline, but the 5 standbys, how often?
Honestly, the ones in Highlands and the ones in the extra truck in Nantahala gets used very seldom. I would say an average of 10 times a year. The truck in Highlands is probably 3 times that. And down in Franklin, our backup crews, it really depends. We got weather coming in tonight. Weather delays our transport on the main trucks. So if they're called out, there's very likely that we will use others tonight. What do you say, guys?
Quite often, yeah.
So you may be
Naturally, in the remote area of Nantahala, it's not as much, but here at the Franklin base, we use
Let
them.
me ask you this, David, on 1,400 trips, about what you make to Asheville from Moore Mission Hospital a year, would every time out of them 1,400 trips, you would probably have one of these on board, one of those ambulances, because that's usually emergency run, right?
Absolutely.
So you'd have.
You're not going to leave that alone.
So you're not going to leave that.
No. Not the,
There's going to be an ambulance that's going to Asheville.
Correct.
That's the problem. If all the ambulances are out and then you got an emergency run to Asheville,
Then they'd have to use a backup
Yeah.
truck, so.
but the folks that don't know in the room, it's 4 a day. Average 4 a day.
Average 4 a day.
To Asheville and Moore Mission Hospital, so.
And these pieces of equipment, we keep calling them a cardiac monitor and a defibrillator, but these pieces of equipment are used on every patient, whether you're a cardiac patient or not. They take your blood pressure. Zoll is the only defibrillator on the market right now that has the manual cuff or the automatic cuff. That'll do pediatric, infants, and adults. The others have the adult cuff that just do all 3 sizes, which is state required. It'll check your pulse ox, which is the amount of oxygen that's in your blood. It will do another feature that has been greatly needed in this county, which is fire department rehab. It will test carbon monoxide poisoning in your blood. We have 2 fire departments that I know of in the county that can do that now. I think Highlands can do that and West Macon can do that. As firemen come in and out of their job, coming to a fire, they're supposed to come out and do some rest and rehabilitation. We've always have an ambulance on scene and we cool them down best we can, give them oxygen if they need to. We didn't until, except for these other 2 departments, don't have the ability to check if carbon monoxide poison is building up in their blood from being inside that fire. These new monitors will be able to do that. It's a worthwhile piece of equipment, and it's not just going to be used on cardiac patients. It'll be used on every patient that we transport.
Yeah, I appreciate what all you guys do, and most of you. And me being you on the board, a little different approach. I think all items, and I told Dave, I'm not picking on Dave. I appreciate what you guys do.
And I appreciate you want to provide the best, highest level of service that you can. But from a budgeting standpoint, I think every major expenditure, other than emergent things, should be run through a normal budget process. And I understand your logic for not doing that last time. You're new to the service just like I am. But I think all major purchases, because every department in here could need a $500 million to upgrade tomorrow. And at some point, we've got to start looking at nickels and dimes in our budget. And that's one reason I think this should be a staggered phase in, whether it's 6, 5, 2, whatever, just to soften that blow. But I do appreciate what you guys do. I have a little experience. I was a medic in the Army. I was chief medic. I built ran an emergency service in Arkansas at one time in my other life. So I know a little bit about what you guys do. The demand placed on me. It's a thankless job.
I'd like to say this right here, just in a recommendation, something to think about. It's sort of what you're saying. The one thing I didn't like about this whole thing right here was the warranty of it. And we've not test piloted these. It might be the greatest thing on earth. It might be a piece of junk too. Now, I'm not saying they are. He said to take it fixed, rebuild. But what I'd like to just say is we do what we gotta do. I'd like to recommend we do some of it, maybe a year, see what's going on, or less, and if it works out, just find everybody's happy. That's a recommendation, thank you.
The only approach, and I don't disagree with nothing Paul or Ronnie said, but the only thing you're good given that we have to take the word. You got your director saying that they've looked at it. You got people who actually are responsible for that citizen, Macon County citizen, to back that ambulance. And we're going to get the $30,000 off the old defibrillator, and then he's going to give us a discount like buying a used car. What was that? 40.
We're getting additional equipment.
The 3 auto.
48,000.
Which is how much?
48,000.
So that's a total of $70-some-odd thousand, right? So, and you're going to charge a finance charge of $16,000 on $374,000 for 59 months. Ain't none of it. All of it's like that. That ain't great.
Let me just go back to Terry a minute. I'm hearing ideas, but
If you don't get them
I'm
all,
asking you to express an opinion, because you don't have to vote on this. I'm not asking you that. But if we buy 6 of them, what do you do with those 6?
we'd have to put them on trucks, but you're not going to get the same deal. I've got to keep some of the old ones, so I'll have some backup units. And if I go in a house, they're not going to get the same care with that old unit that they're going to get with that new unit. It's going to take me longer to get set up. That particular patient ain't going to get the same care. I'm going to do the best I can with what I got. And eventually, we'll get everything done. But like these guys were saying, when you go into that one box, you got everything. Where now I'm carrying 4 and 5. And I'll have to keep some of the monitors that you're going to trade in. And I don't know what those old guys are going to say on another deal. It wouldn't be the same deal you're getting now.
You won't give as much money on the credit allowance if you don't put them all in.
And you're not going to get the $48,000.
If it was for anything else, Mr. Chairman, besides the safety and the welfare of our citizens, we wouldn't need to have a discussion. We've done like Paul said, this may be kicked down the road.
I agree.
This is different. It is different.
Well, and I'm certainly not opposed to that. I said last week, I really do feel like the things that are recurring expenses need to be in the budget. Every year needs to be part of the budget.
And these will be.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Yes, we will.
I know.
I said 12 or 10, what if we 10, 12, what if we 5? They won't wear out at the same time. In 5 years, we're going to be sitting here looking at buying 10 more units.
Well, that's what Jack said, he can have an opportunity.
And there's what you can do, since we're getting such a good deal on financing these things, not having to come up with $350,000 on top, is we can purchase these things and start setting aside enough money to replace these things as they wear out. Some of them are gonna wear out sooner than others, depending on how much they're used. So if we start budgeting a certain amount of money in the budget for depreciation, for replacement of these monitors, by the time, I think they all got a year's warranty on them, but over a 3-year period, you're gonna generate enough money in your reserve account to start replacing these as you need to, but you gotta start putting money in the budget in order to replace those. and if you bought some this year, bought some next year, you know, you might still accomplish the same thing, but the thing about it, I think the thing about it that I think is important to understand is that if the board decides to go ahead and go with this proposal, it'll have to be part of next year's budget. You're just planning right now that it's going to be, because we're not going to make any payments on any kind on this for this year. The first payment will not be until September. So it'll be an amount in that budget of 70, how much was it, Lauren?
78.
It'll have to be an amount in debt service of $78,000 in next year's budget to pay for the 12 that we're getting. But there also needs to be some money set aside in the reserve account in addition to that, to go into a reserve account for replacement of those. Because like Paul says, you don't want to wait till they all wear out, and then you got to figure out how to replace them all again.
And Jack, I'm the same way like it was when I was in the school board. We did that with the computers, and so much was set aside as $250,000 a year. We set aside for computers, and some companies quit doing that. Well, that's why we got 9-year-old computers who did until you're going to start over. So that's my
But
problem.
this is a big risk, Kevin, this ain't.
But they quit doing it after I left.
What's going on? Basically. I understand. I want to have a light version. Mr. Chairman, I just think this is, and I'm going to interrupt, Rob, but I think this is an opportunity that Macon County can give its citizens and this department the best opportunity for the health. And I know it's a lot of money, but like Paul said the other day, you know, if you're out there and what's a life worth, well, that's not a fair argument. We don't. It's worth more than this. But I just think that we're not going to beat the deal, and I think it's going to be in the next year's budget. And we do set aside the money. Let's go ahead and give these folks and give our citizens the best opportunity to survive if they're under this situation. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we go with what's proposed. The amount to finance not to exceed $374,000. The interest rate of 1.57%. We get the discounts off of it, and not to exceed 59 months. And in that same motion, I'd also have the county manager give us a line in the budget of how much we set aside each year to replenish these as they go out. That is a motion.
If I could encourage you to add the resolution that BB&T had proposed to
It's attached.
Yeah. Let me just look through it, make sure they ain't got it.
I think it's consistent with what you just said.
Yeah, it is.
And I would include the resolution attached from BB&T in that motion.
Okay. We have a second to the motion. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
You're not providing substandard care now, though.
Absolutely not.
That's the key thing. This is
No,
not
really.
always,
We're supplying the best care we can right
yes,
now.
all of a sudden the light doesn't come on and we've entered the space age here. I mean, you're providing the best care that you possibly can with equipment you have.
That's fair.
Can you provide better care with this
That's-
equipment?
oh,
Can you provide better care with this equipment?
I feel that we can.
Jerry?
I agree.
And I'm not against providing that care, it's just a matter of financing that I have a problem with.
You're talking about the monitors wearing out. Your frontline trucks are probably going to wear out first. You're not going to replace them all at the same time. These guys that runs sometimes 15 calls a day, that monitor will wear out before some of the others, your backup trucks.
And that monitor would stay on the frontline truck,
If we had problems, we'd take one off the backline truck and put on it.
but you'd know how many hours that unit had
Yeah.
in service.
Yeah.
You know? That's my thing is let's get this somehow on a rotating basis where we don't need to deal with this again. And it needs to be in the budget. That's my two right here.
Along with the money to replenish these things, not have to come up with this.
Yes. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 3-2. Thank you. All right. Thank you, David. Thank you, gentlemen, for your input.
Thank you for what you do.
What you do, and you know about it than we do. We've got to trust your opinion, lean on that opinion. Thank you. I guess the other item is we had asked some questions about the classification and compensation study that Springstead had conducted. To give you some background, I think back when I guess Sheriff Holland came to us about the debt situation, we agreed to look at that. We also agreed, Paul, you weren't here at the time, but we agreed that we needed to do some type of pay study, and that was conducted, and so that's where we are. Jack, do you have any background to give?
Yeah, this goes back, and actually, like you say, I think Sheriff Holland brought the board's attention about the inequity in pay among law enforcement folks, and we started looking at it. We saw there were a lot of inequities, not just in law enforcement, throughout the rest of the departments of the county. And looking at that, excuse me, there had been probably 11 or 12 years since the county had actually sat down and done a comprehensive study of our classification and pay plan. So the board decided to go ahead and embark on that. So in fall of 2011, we had a contract with Springstead through the County Commission Association, North Carolina County Commission Association, to do a study of all of our job classes and so forth. And I think that was finished probably sometime in the late spring of 2012, and I think we had a presentation to the board in mid-summer of 2012. And I think some of the same information that we saw back in July, but some of you on board were not on board at that time, didn't have the ability to see all that information. So we've asked Mr. John Ansavino to come and go over it again. And we have a lot of interested county employees here who, department heads who've gotten a copy of the report, and they may maybe find some of the information important to them as well. And so we've asked Mr. Ansavino to come and go back through the presentation, and that we would have some particular questions about the study that he could perhaps answer tonight, and then move on from there. But I'll at this point then unless Mike has something to say. Mike's done a lot of work with Mr. Ansavino on this with our department heads, and unless you have anything that you want to add to it, if not, Mr. Chairman, we'd like to recognize Mr. Ansavino for his presentation and update on the board before you classification of pay plan.
John, welcome. Glad you're here.
Glad to be back. I am John Ansavino, and I was here in July of 2012 when we made the initial presentation. And Jack and Mike and I were talking, and as Jack had said, we thought it might be a good idea to refresh the board's memory since you've been away from this for a while. We're here tonight to talk to you about what we consider to be the county's most important and valuable resource for employees because we're a service-oriented organization. And what we're going to be talking about is classification and compensation, essentially what folks do in their jobs, and whether or not they're compensated in relationship to the market fairly and equitably. Just a quick brief about Springstead. We are a nationally recognized leader in performing management advisory types of studies. We perform about 275 studies a year throughout the country. We are a national company. My office is up in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm from the Richmond office, and I'm responsible for North Carolina and the Mid-Atlantic. Your study, as Jack said, has been completed through a contract with the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. We've been an endorsed provider with them since about 2006, 2007. We've also been an endorsed provider with the North Carolina municipalities for 25 years to do all studies in North Carolina for cities and towns in excess of 100 employees. As you can see in the presentation, we've completed similar studies in the last few years for Transylvania, Watauga, Caldwell, Randolph, Cabarrus, Chatham, Guilford, Warren, Trowon, Camden, Bender, Duplin, Onslow, Craven, and Edgecombe counties here in North Carolina.
Excuse me, I don't want to interrupt, but I'm not sure that microphone is working very well there. Can you hear on the back? Okay. Can't judge it by my hearing, because my hearing is not as good as it used to be.
Just keep talking and he'll turn up the volume while you're talking.
Test, test, test.
Okay. Is that better?
I don't want to interrupt people, but those counties you just mentioned, how many implemented part or any of what you proposed? Do you know?
All
They implemented 100% of what you recommended?
yes, sir. And Onslow was $4.3 million. That was it.
When was that, though?
That was about 2006, I believe it was.
Different world.
Yeah, it was. I'm going to touch on it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I was responsible for managing all of those studies.
All those counties you just mentioned was around 2006, 2007?
Transylvania was about 2008. Caldwell was around 2008. Randolph was 2011, I believe it was. Cabarrus was 2007. Chatham was 2007. Guilford was 2009. Warren was 2007. Showan was last year.
Were they all implemented?
Yes, sir. Duplin, Pendry was 2008. Onslow was about 2006. Craven was 2008. And Edgerton was 2009. But we have had a great deal of experience here in the state of North Carolina working on these types of studies and have been deeply involved in working with very good employees. And I did want to note that when we came down, one of our executive vice presidents was with me because we were over in Burke County working on another study of efficiency analysis. And Nick commented when he interviewed a few of your department heads. He's been a city manager, he's been a mayor, and he's also a city engineer. He commented on, he walked away from this county and he said, boy, what a good group of people. And so you've got some very good department heads here because he's a hard critic of local government folks. Now, why are studies like this done? Well, things change over time, particularly in periods of downsizing, which the county's gone through somewhat. And due to the introduction of new mandates by the state, whenever the legislature gets together, they're always changing things, as well as technology and programs that come into the workplace. I like to joke around that when I became county manager when I was 28, we didn't have fax machines, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have computers, we didn't even have hold ups of the telephone. But in the first 5 years that I was in local government, we had all of those things introduced, which changed my life and our employees' lives dramatically, which required additional levels of training. So the world, the workforce is continually changing. You've gone through some staff reductions here, and we all know that in local government, you can't close the doors on a particular program. If there aren't enough folks to do the work, it usually is parceled out to those folks who volunteer to do the work or wish to do the work. And they pick it up just very naturally. But it adds to their responsibilities and the essential functions of their jobs. Actually makes their jobs a little bit more valuable. Classification and compensation studies are also done to address or minimize issues of high turnover, difficulty in recruiting quality employees, and other factors which result when you go through a rate of high turnover. In doing this study, we found that the county's rate of turnover is the best information that we could obtain, about 8% on an annual basis at the time that we had the information. And a typical range is between 5 and 10%, so you're approaching the upper level of an acceptable range. Classification and compensation studies were also done due to changes in the job market. And as Mr. Gordon said, your last study was done approximately 12 years ago. Now, I think we'll all recall, many of us have forgotten what it was like up until before 2008 when Bob fell out of the market. That was a very, very difficult time for local governments to recruit and retain employees. We actually had some local governments that we're familiar with in public safety and EMS as well as in law enforcement that were doing drastic things to recruit qualified employees from other agencies and other local governments. And it was a revolving door for some local governments. And I believe that was the impetus for this study here, when there was a great deal of turnover in the Sheriff's Department. But since 2008, we've kind of been frozen in time. 2008, we were doing a number of studies. We finished those studies up in 2009, 2010. We did very few studies. Studies have begun to become more common now. There's a change in the attitude of local governments to a more positive outlook on things. And what we're beginning to see is a number of local governments are beginning to recognize that the employees that have stayed with them through the recession, who have carried out a great deal more work, have not been recognized for the work that they've done. And so those studies are now becoming more commonplace. I would say one other thing about turnover. Certainly in the last couple of years that has not been a big issue for many local governments, but I'll give you one example of the hidden cost of turnover in local government. I was talking to a chief law enforcement officer one time. He was having a real serious problem with his folks leaving, going into other jurisdictions. He told me it took him about 18 months from the time that he could recruit an employee, train the employee, put the employee on the road, and have that employee be productive in the department and in the community. And he said during that time, the other law enforcement officers that were out on the street were the folks that were really picking up the slack and was really stressing the organization. Now, the county's objectives, we had a number of different objectives when we initiated the study. As we just talked, we looked at your system as it existed. It's the first comprehensive look we've had at it in about 12 years. We also took a look at the county's current compensation policies and practices. That is, how staff is placed in the salary range, how they progress through the salary range. We were also tasked with ensuring the job descriptions comply with applicable laws and regulations and include up-to-date essential functions as well as relevant requirements. So all of your position descriptions that have been delivered to the county now comply with the Disabilities Act and have updated position essential functions as well as reporting functions as well. We were also asked to take a look at your classification system and salary ranges to ensure that they were competitive in the labor market, the regional labor market. And by competitive, we mean not too high, not too low, but competitive within the market. To ensure that the county could, when vacancies did occur, to recruit high-quality employees and to retain those employees that were on staff. We were asked to establish internal equity between positions, and that internal equity, what that means is that like positions with like responsibilities, training required, supervision exercised, those types of factors should be grouped within the same salary ranges or close to the same salary ranges. When we finished the study, the county, Mr. Horton, and the staff had asked us to make sure that when you leave the system behind, that you can maintain it. You won't have to call Springstead to do classification development or to reclassify the report should the duties change. So as soon as we have the opportunity to train the staff how to use our SAFE system, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And then we were also asked to review the exempt, non-exempt status for all positions here in the county in regard to the Fair Labor Standards Act to ensure that they're compliant on an exempt, non-exempt status. And so that's included in the report. Now, we have some definitions. I'm not going to talk about those because I think we talked about those last time, Mr. Chairman, and I know you all have some questions. So we'll run through these. We'll talk a little bit about the pay philosophy that we talked to the staff about and we outlined in the report. First of all, typically local governments want to provide fair and equitable compensation to their employees. As I said, not too high, not too low, competitive in the labor market. To do that, you have to not only conduct a comprehensive analysis, but you have to maintain that on a periodic basis. We balanced the external market and internal equity by using the SAFE system. It's a statistical system which analyzes jobs. We have worked to develop and maintain, and you'll have to maintain that competitive pay structure when and if you adopt a plan, with consideration for the fiscal resources of the county. Of course, that's always a consideration. All pay philosophies nowadays include a component that is a performance-based component. It's been typical in many organizations that employees are just moved with along the range, sometimes on the basis of longevity. In today's world, what we see is more of a performance-based requirement where employees are evaluated on a periodic basis. They're assigned goals to achieve, to improve their performance as well as to achieve the goals of the board. And then they're rewarded based upon how well they perform achieving those goals. And then finally, all pay philosophies include having an understandable program. And we feel that the program which we developed is a simple one, it's understandable, it's well-founded, and it's well-done. Now, how did we get to where we are today? The methodology that we used. This was an interactive process with your employees, with your department heads. We initiated the process in late 2011. We met with the county manager. We met with Mike Decker, who we define as your human resources director, and other things, all different ones. As well as your department heads. We had 21 meetings with department heads to interview them to get an understanding of what some of the recruitment issues were, what some of the retention issues were, what difficulties they were having in finding quality employees if the vacancy did occur. We also wanted to understand the structure of the department, because the public works department in one community is not a public works department in another community. So we spent a lot of time talking to your department heads. We then moved on to employee orientation meetings. And one thing that we like to do in those employee orientation meetings is set the stage so that employees don't believe that they're going to get a huge pay increase. We don't believe in doing that because we don't know coming into the study. So we told the employees, we just don't know. It could be small, it could be medium, it could be large, it could be nothing. We don't know. We have to gather the data, we have to analyze it. Also during those meetings, we walked them through the process and solicited their involvement because we had to update the position descriptions, the job descriptions here in the county. And so we went over a position analysis questionnaire with all of your employees in all different meetings. And we asked them to fill them out. Their supervisors fact-checked the work. They offered comments in regard to whether or not they thought the position descriptions or the PAQs that the employees completed were accurate and complete. And then we did 70 job audits to verify information that was included as part of the position analysis questionnaires, where we saw some conflicts between what the employee told us and what the supervisor told us. We also collected a great deal of data from the county, the listing of all your employees, the hire dates, the promotion dates, the current salaries, personnel policies, organizational charts, and a wide range of your benefits. We prepared draft position descriptions. We sent them back to the county for review. Some were edited. And we then began to evaluate the positions using the SAFE system to make sure that we understood where they related to one another within the hierarchy of the position overall. We conducted a comprehensive market salary and benefits survey. We solicited information from 13 different localities. We received information from 10. We surveyed 79 different positions. We actually developed 174, I believe it was, new position descriptions for the county. And we gathered data on 79 because if we tried to gather data on all 174, we have a document which no other human resource director or human would respond to. So we sampled positions across all departments from entry-level positions on up to management-level positions, gathered data on those positions. We gathered not just on the title of the position, but also on the definition of what the position did, the number of hours that employee worked in that position, what the salary range was, what the actual salary range was, as well as several other items. We developed a salary line, which is called line of progression, which helped us determine pay grades.
We then assigned the positions to pay grades using the SAFE system and market data. And then we began to analyze what the costs are, which I think is weighing on everybody's mind as a board, which is not unusual in all of our studies. That's always a significant question that we address. The communities that we surveyed are up on the screen. There were 13. We did not receive responses from 3 of them, but we did get representative data from the other 10, which provides us with 10 out of 13 localities responding to the survey, which we have run the organizations, the counties, and the cities, by your staff before we sent the survey out to make sure that we were on target with the market. Now, our findings. We found that generally the county's minimums, the midpoints, and maximums of their salary ranges were significantly below the market, approximately 21% based on the data that we collected and analyzed. We did find some internal pay relationship inequities which existed, which we corrected using the SAFE system. We found that the county's then current pay schedule was in need of some retooling based upon what the market told us. And based on the fact that the data that we found told us that you were about 21% below the market in minimums and points and maximums. We also found that policies regarding periodic updates to the plan needed to be updated. Then sometimes you should really take a comprehensive look. We often ask, well, how often does a comprehensive look take place? Usually between 5 and 7 years, because it changes not only the labor market, but changes in jobs. Yours have been about 12 years. We also found that many job consolidations, they resulted in additional functions being added to positions which changed the responsibilities of the positions and the value of the position. As we work to develop the pay scale, that's been utilized to develop with the respondents' survey data. And it's consistent with your new salary schedule, which we recommend. It's consistent with other jurisdictions. They all have open range systems, that is, they have minimum, maximum, and have a step system. It is a system that there's a spread between 50% between the minimums and the maximums. We did maintain that. And a 5% spread or a difference between 32 pay grades, but all pay grades have been updated. And it reflects several increases across the minimums, the midpoints, and the maximums. And we have included that survey data in Appendix B of the study, so that you can see the different positions here in the county roll out. This slide represents the new recommended pay scale, which has shifted. It's shifted upwards to reflect the market, which means on grade 17, your minimum salary for grade 17 is now $20,800. The previous minimum was around $17,500, $17,600, and all have been shifted based upon analysis of the market. To assign the positions to the pay grades, we want you to understand that we did not pull an estimate out of the air. We have a system called the SAFE system. It stands for Systematic Analysis Factor Evaluation. It's a copyrighted system. It's a system which was developed in response to an equal employment opportunity complaint in Housing County, Georgia, about 30 years ago. And what we do is we take a look at the position analysis questionnaires as well as the position descriptions. And we review each one of those based upon those 9 factors that you see up on the screen in the book. For each one of these factors, there's a range of points. For example, in your supervision exercise, if you don't supervise anyone, you don't get any points. If you supervise 50 folks, you get a significant number of points. And for each one of these factors, we have a range of points. We total up the points, we look at what the totals are, and we arrange them in order of least number of points to most number of points. And then we check against what our experience has been in the field to make sure that it makes sense.
whether or not it fits with the organization as we know it. And if we see that an accounts clerk and the finance director are the worst points, we've either got bad data or we've got to do, or we've miscoded the positions using the SAFE system. And it is a system that we use on all of our analyses. It's similar to the Hayes system and the other systems that are out there in the field. We also use the SAFE system and statistical analysis to develop a proposed salary curve. We look for the positions that we have, the points that we have, where the market tells us those positions should fall, and we look at to see if we come close to the line. And that's an ascending line. We call getting to the point of best fit. We try to get between 92 and 100%, which means we've got good market data, we've got good assessment of the positions using the SAFE system. And here in Macon, we achieved about 97%, which is a very good line of fit. From there, we began to assign the positions using the SAFE system to the new salary structure and using the market data. And so for each person here in the county in a position, we determined if they were below grade, if they were in the grade, or if they were above the grade that we recommended. And we came up with 3 implementation options working with your staff. In all of our studies, the first option is always to get those employees who are below the minimum recommended pay grade to the minimum pay grade. And in Macon County, we got 55% of your employees who fell below the recommended minimums.
How do we match? Well, I'll just tell you, I've struggled trying to figure out how to be how do you match on the proposed pay scale? How do we match the grade to the job?
Okay. If you look in your appendix in the report, we provided
report.
This one? Book. Yes, sir. It's under appendix, I believe it's D. Oh, D, excuse me. Appendix D. Okay. And we provided it to you in 2 ways. The first one is is in department or major functional area. You see administrative there, you see animal control, you see board of elections, you see economic development, you see emergency management, and they are in ascending order. If you'll turn over 2 pages,
Can we stay on that page just a second?
Yep.
Just catch me up.
Yep.
Just started to, we don't want to pick out the certain ones, but if I go down a grade here, say grade 30, and then I go over here to grade 30 to the proposed pay scale, and I look at the minimum, mid, and max, and then what I don't see is what they make now. So I mean, we can certainly go back and find that, but I thought there'd be a column.
We
The range, you have the range minimum.
You got
what they make maximum.
Yeah.
We got the individuals, in the personnel record, but what we have is the grade. John can probably explain this much better than I can, but everybody has a grade, and that grade has a minimum, midpoint, and a maximum. So that's what we're comparing here. So instead of what an actual individual particular job makes, is what that grade calls for. Minimum, midpoint, and the maximum compared to what our minimum, midpoint, and maximum is in our pay point. Does that make sense?
About as much as this report, Dr. Reed.
This shows our proposed pay scale, it doesn't show the current ranges. And I think that's what's confusing some of us, is that this really doesn't mean anything to us, except these are just numbers.
There's a copy of it in there.
Where is that?
Let me call your attention to appendix B is in board, which looks like this. It's got a color.
We have to have double cheaters to read it.
Right. But how do we get rid of that?
Now, you'll see over on the right side, Mr. Bingham, members of the board, you'll see salary survey versus proposed, and then over on the extreme right side, you'll see current versus proposed. And what this shows you, it doesn't show you the actual dollars, it shows you what your current minimum is for a position. And it shows what the proposed, what the difference is. So for example, in the position of animal shelter attendant, that's on the second line down. The current minimum for the county is $22,140. The difference recommended that we're proposing is 14% greater for that position. And then the minimum that is part of the proposed is $25,293.
Let me put it another way. If you look at that particular position there, the current minimum for that position is $22,140.
Yes, sir.
If you look at the far left under the proposed pay scale, the proposed pay scale for the minimum for the grade 21 is $25,282.
That is correct, yes.
So current minute, that's what we're paying, man?
Yeah, if the person that's just started in that position, we're paying them at the minimum. Starting salary for somebody in that position is $22,140. Through the research, Mr. Angelino said their starting position should be at $25,293. I mean, $25,282.
I'm just slow.
See where I get those numbers from, Ronnie?
No.
On take the far right. Where it
I got
says
the far
current
right.
versus proposed under minimum, consider minimum, 22,140. It's just the first line there, the second line down.
That,
Current versus proposed, it says the minimum is
I got you.
22,140. All right, that's the current, it's 22,140. If you look all the way back over to the left, where it says proposed pay scale,
25,250.
25,282. It's hard to read, it's so small. That's what proposed is. So what he's saying is that's 14.19% higher than what we currently have in that one position.
Thank you.
So as we use the SAFE system and we develop new pay grades, we found that 55% of your employees, 181 out of 327 based upon the role that they provided us, are capable of minimum proposed salary ranges. Now, your staff asked us to do something a little bit different than other staffs do, and we include the benefit costs as part of the overall impact on the county for implementation. So as you can see on the screen, for option one, the implementation cost, including benefits on an annual basis, is $618,000 to get everybody to the minimum of the proposed salary. Those folks, those 146 employees that are not affected by the minimum fall naturally within the range. Under this option will not receive a salary increase because they naturally fall within the salary range based upon the current salary and our review of their position. The impact of $618,000 breaks down to about $530,000 in salary and $88,000 in benefits. So So that's,
When you say benefits, you're talking about Social Security, Medicare withholding, you're not talking about insurance, you're talking about.
not health insurance.
Talking about those things that will be increased because of the increase in salary.
We didn't talk about this, I don't think. Did you compare how Macon County's benefits
Yes,
compare?
yeah, I'm gonna get to that in just a second. And I just say real quick, we have a great benefits compared to other communities, particularly your health insurance, is very strong. Great benefits program, very, very strong program. So that's option one. The second option is bringing everybody to the minimum or providing a 2% salary increase. And this will affect 99% of your employees. We have 2 employees who are above the grade, and so they would not be affected. This helps to begin to address compression issues. And compression is where you have employees that are hired in. You have a senior employee who was hired in, maybe with you for 5 years, didn't move very far away from the minimum. And you hire a new employee right in behind him, same job classification, same job type, and they're paid almost the same amount. So you've got a 1-year employee, maybe a 5-year employee, almost the same pay. And this begins to spread that out a little bit and take care of the problem of compression. This has a cost, an estimated cost of $759,410, and that includes benefits as well. And the cost, the salary cost of that estimate, of that implementation option is $531,126 to get folks to the minimum, and $113,000 move folks within the pay grade. This does increase your market competitiveness, and it also deals, as I said, a little bit with the compression issue.
You know, just to clear things up, the copy of the report that they have is slightly different than the numbers you have a little bit. For example, the 759 that you have on this one is probably an updated figure. The other one we have is like 750. So
Okay.
There'll be a little bit, your number, I'm assuming these numbers are most.
These are most current.
So they're all just a slight amount, so they're real close, but they're not exactly the same number we have here.
And then the last option that we were asked to deal with was dealing with the compression issue, fixing it once and for all. And this would affect, again, 99% of your employees. This always has the most significant price impact or cost impact on the locality. And here in Macon County, in Onslow, when we did the study, they said it was $4.3 million. In Pender County, it was around $700,000. Here, the estimate's about $1.2 million, including benefits, which is about $1,029,000 for direct salary costs and about $180,000 for benefits. But this does fix your compression salary issues as identified within the salary numbers. And we recognize that it is an expensive option because of that. When we talked to your staff about it, we were asked to develop a phasing plan should the board wish to consider that. And so the phasing option on implementation is over a 3-year period. It gets everybody up to the minimum in the first year. And this was, as we originally proposed, it was going to be a mid-year implementation. And there's a 2% to move employees away from one another to get the program started. That would have been an impact in current fiscal year of $379,000. In January of 2013, again, assuming mid-year implementation, we have a full year of funding dedicated to the cost of implementation there, and begin to fund years of service based upon the data that we have, which deals with compression based upon the records that we have in the county. And then in the final year, we have full funding of the program. So over a period of 3 years, it's about $1.5 million, $1.482 million of additional cost to the county. for implementation for dealing with your issues of compression. And that is a fairly good estimate. We did increase it for relatively low rate of inflation both fiscal years. Now, as I mentioned, whatever option you choose to implement, you have to have some practices in place for ongoing administration. And while the rate of inflation hasn't been very significant for the last few years, we're beginning to see some localities using a rate of inflation again to adjust the pay range as well as the employees in the pay range. But you have to have a consistent standard for that. It can be a regional indicator, an average of what other local governments are doing, the consumer price index. It can be the consumer price index or any other variation of that. But the county needs to have a policy on that so that you can stay current in the market when you begin to develop your budgets. That will, as I said, you need to move your pay ranges as well as the pay of employees. We have some local governments who move the pay ranges, don't move the pay of the employees. And some who move the pay of the employees, don't move the pay ranges. And so the pay ranges fall behind or the employees fall behind. So it has to be a current move to really maintain the system. And then we would suggest to you that you begin to look at a more aggressive form of employee performance evaluation to reward employees to move them through the grades when you have the opportunity to do so. Because without that, the employee can often stay fixed with the pay grade. Now you're best on a couple here. We provided on pages 12 in Appendix F and pages 16 to 18 of the report an analysis of your benefits. And all of your benefits are competitive in the marketplace, but particularly strong is your health insurance program. We work with some local governments to provide no family coverage whatsoever, no coverage for their employees other than single care coverage. And fair means basic, reduced programs.
Were all those self-insured programs?
The ones in the survey or
the ones you compared?
I believe so, yes, sir. So, what I'd have to say is, your benefits program adds a lot to the total compensation. We look at compensation. Employees typically look at compensation. That is, what do I get paid in my paycheck? But benefits add on 24 to 36%. I haven't calculated what that ratio is here in Macon County, but just your health insurance program alone adds a lot to the total compensation package for the employees. There's something that the employees, I'm sure, appreciate, but often sometimes they tend to forget. So, very strong benefits for everybody. And then finally, as we look at the report in total, adoption of the recommendations of the report will result in what we feel is fair and more equitable compensation in what is becoming a more competitive and it's an emerging labor market. And while you've had, I think, relatively low rates of turnover during the recession, it could perk back up again once the economy returns to a better level of strength. The compensation system that we've recommended addresses both the internal and external market issues that you tasked us to address. We think it puts you in a fiscally responsible position using your resources. You're not too high in the market, you're not too low in the market, you're on an average with what the market is based upon our analysis. It does recognize the job changes which have taken place through the rewriting of several job descriptions. It also takes into account all the job the changes which have occurred to folks that haven't taken on new responsibilities. And it does provide you guidance for consistent administration of your pay policies and procedures among the departments. So with that, I'll be happy to stand and answer any questions that you have.
How many church business do I think comes to mind? Just if you add the benefit, you have to understand most of us, Mr. Bill's been here 6 years, the rest of us been here 2 or less. So we not been involved in pay raises, or we're fairly new board.
Yes, sir.
So I know sometimes in the past, covered benefits have been given in lieu of raises, things like that. Mike, is that fair? I guess my question, I think in the end, the board's going to move in this direction. How, I don't know, it's up to 5 people, not me. But what is the value of the insurance benefits compared? I know we covered the cost of the employee, and give us a quick.
Right now, we're putting money into a fund to cover the employee of $500 a month, $6,000 a year for the employee. That employee has spending covers, spouse, a child, and so forth. They put a lot of money in, the county puts some in too. The county actually supplements some of the costs for the dependent coverage.
How much do we put in per month for a family? What's that amount to?
It's about 700.
So what does the average family in the survey put in?
Very, very little, much less than that.
Give me a figure.
We see anything from 0 on into maybe 300.
So we would know, we got a lot of county employees sitting here who understand that. I think they do understand it, but when we say under the market, that's not considering that insurance.
Correct.
So we're clear about that. What we do is fine, but just so we understand, that's worth $700 a month, which is $9,000 a year.
That includes the amount for the employee.
Right.
500 of that goes to the employee, the other.
Correct. I understand. He says in some counties in the survey with 0.
Yeah.
So we'll compare one thing. Let's compare them all. And I think we'll move in that direction. But that's fairly significant to understand. I think past commissioners apparently, and like I say, I've not been here, but apparently they've given benefits in lieu of raises. Would be my guess.
And raises.
That's true. At one time, and Hawkins probably remember this when he used to be a county employee back years and years ago. The county used to pay the total cost of employee and family health insurance. Right? And of course, back at that time, it was only $100 a month. It's kind of a lot higher than that since then. That's why we got to get to it.
And we've seen throughout the recession, many communities, counties, and cities diminish county or city employees.
Well, that's what I was saying. We're several of us up here pretty involved in state organization. I know a lot of counties that cut out benefits or cut down benefits. And our county has not done that. And that's, even though I agree that we do need to make some changes here, I think we need to. You look at that first and you think, man, Macon County really compared to the employees. On that side of it, you may have an argument when you look at the benefits side, which again, we just said is worth $9,000 a year. You have to add that back.
Yes, sir.
Would you agree with that?
I would agree, yes.
Just a point.
When was the last raise? At 2%?
3%, the county board's got 3%.
In 2000.
2011. And that's the only one that's gotten since 2008, but that was the year that the rate report got 3% and we did 5% of the insurance difference. So that's the only reason we've had to lose 5%.
Well, I did it with 8 days last year.
Yes.
We get an extra vacation days.
Is that a one-time thing?
Yeah, one time for last year. Yeah, just for this year. Yeah.
Got another question?
I've got a comment, or I guess it could be a question. I feel like we need adequate amount of pay matters. And in this survey, I can't find an analysis because most counties comparable to us has a lot less employees. Let's take Jackson County. Jackson County has about 42 less employees than Macon County. And roughly, we've got the same amount of population. We're about the same amount of expenses it costs us annually to operate. Some of them, like Rutherford County, has got 68,000 people. That's double what we got now. We got 4 employees less. So I think we need an analysis if that's adequate too.
But the number of employees, your staffing analysis, that's it. We would say, and this is just our interview of your department heads, our experience in the field, and your staff analysis, and we put on that. you run a pretty lean operation, which is a credit to the employees who work here. There are areas where you are pretty lean.
But do you have in your study, where we can look at that?
We provided some staffing data.
We asked them when we first started in this thing, to take a look, without doing a full time and motion study and staffing analysis, to take a look and see how we were staffed, and if we were over or under, if we see any glaring thing that jumped out, and I think they did part of that, and I don't know that it's in.
It's not in this report.
But you all did a short version of the staffing analysis for it.
We provided you Brad Fox, I think back in May or so, 2012. And what we found is that it's a very lean operation.
How many county employees do you have?
418 for what we got. I'm just looking at Watauga County. It's got 50% more population than we've got, 136 less employees.
Well, let's use Jackson County for example. A lot of these guys you see in here are county employees. They're not employed by Jackson County. They subcontract out for emergency services. So there's one reason that's probably the full employees. So there's probably a lot of those positions in the county that might have a greater population. A lot of that stuff they might subcontract out. So it's tough to compare.
But on the other hand, I can add 8,000 more population, if I go into the college, that would throw in.
Jack, how many employees do we have?
We don't have that many. I mean, that would be all of our part-time employees as well as far as full-time employees with benefits, Mike can give you a better.
350.
It says right here, the reason I put it is 355.
So if you do a full-blown staffing analysis, you really have to get into each organization separately. Because you remember I said that when we talk to department heads, you find out what a public works department does in Macon County, because it may be different in another county that we've worked with. So if we were to do a staffing analysis, we'd have to get into what services are directly provided by that department in other comparable counties, how many folks they've got, do they contract things out, what else do the employees do?
For example, you may have your maintenance department. In our case, they do most everything. Some counties, you may hire a landscaping company to do all your mowing.
Right.
You may hire an HVAC company to do all, and they don't show up as county employees, they show up as contractors.
Yeah.
So that's different.
It is, and I think your point is it's hard to compare exactly county, because there's not another exact Macon County out there, so you have to give and take. For example, what does the department do? And this board knows well, our public buildings and grounds department does more than just maintain our buildings, because they've done hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of remodeling.
Saved us
and not every county won't necessarily do that, so it's hard to compare. You can compare bodies, but you can't compare what those departments do compared to what another county does. And so it varies from county to county.
And it's not that we've not done over the years to do a comprehensive. I remember I used to serve on the thing called the Social Service Board. And we were talking about comparable salaries and how to do that and the best way to go about it. So it's been talked about for many, many years. Have we waited too long to do something like this? Probably, yes, no doubt. It's not fair to those folks that provide services to the citizens. But, and that said, is this the fairest way to compensate the employees that they provide the citizens, they provide the services to the citizens? And get very few thank you for that. Yes, sir. But is this the fairest way to get, and what would have been easier for me to read if you had like the pay grade, what they make now, if it was in a chart that I could read. I tried to figure it out.
You can do that, Jeff, go back and forth.
Yeah.
The chart.
And, we didn't, I got ADD in school, and that book. So you can see where, the only thing I'd suggest, and maybe Mike is going to work on this, if we had that chart, it would be so much easier to read. Well, I'm not saying that it's all.
Well,
Mike can fix that.
We'll work with Mike on this.
We just make it a lot easier to read.
Yes, sir.
Make it a lot easier to read for the employees too. I think it would, and it would make more sense. I think instead of going back and forth and you say, well, the lowest paid employee at $20,800. That's basically $10 an hour. If there was a 40-hour week, 52 weeks a year. So, and then you come back, if you add what Kevin was talking about, we'd maybe ask the chairman to bring back some, what it would cost for insurance. And if we add that to it, then where that would be.
We're paying that, we're paying the insurance part of it. What we're trying to show here is that whatever the salary is, and what it hinges on that salary, which will cost you more money, like additional Social Security and additional retirement and so forth, all those things that are geared toward that salary. So you're not changing, you're not starting all over, you're actually covering that particular position already with health insurance, which is a big, huge benefit. But what we're trying to do is take the salary
You gotta have it in there.
increase, and it's in there, it's already in there, but what, if the salary changes, what we have to figure, like when we do the budget, is what does that affect as far as those things that go back to a base salary and calculate a percentage of that, and that's what's in the fringe benefits on here. It doesn't include the health insurance, but the health insurance is covered for every employee in the county that has insurance or that wants insurance.
One thing that many local governments do on a periodic basis, I'm not sure that your system has the capability of doing this, is they send out a statement to their employees on an annual basis or maybe every couple of years that shows the employee's salary, lists out the benefits, and then what the total compensation is, so the employees can be reminded of that. What we can do is, I'll work with Mike, we can generate probably 6, 7, 8, 10 positions. Not, we won't name anybody, but we'll show what the total compensation is for those positions, so that you as a board have a sense of what that is. We add all of those benefits in, because, you all need to know that. And I think the employees probably need to see an example of that on a periodic basis as well.
Is that a program? I mean, is that a computer program we can say?
It is a program you can purchase. I don't know if you can get it out of your current system. I'm not familiar with the technical.
Actually, we've been working with our healthcare provider to do a benefit statement for the employees. Present is working, is supposed to be working with us on that, to actually take every individual employee and show them, this is your salary. But when we budget for the county, we have to budget more than the salary. We got to budget all the benefits and so forth, and all the other things that go along with that particular position. So Preston has volunteered to help us do a employee benefit statement, which we need to get, which would show every individual employee what their specific benefits are in addition to their regular salary.
I know last year when we gave that extra 3 days, I didn't vote for it, but I suggested that I vote to give the money. That's just my opinion. I think the employees would have to have the money, but they would have to vote for that. And at the same time, I think we should be able to take a little bit more to be able to do some comparison of this study.
Just a thought, how was the study market chosen? I mean, we've got 3 counties, Person, Richmond, Bladen, which are, I would call outliers in each survey.
They were on comparable services and size.
That whole different market.
Yes.
And
we needed to have about 13 different localities. We didn't have enough comparables within the immediate area.
And you were talking, in one of these, we got the 2 documents, I'd ask for stuff like Ronnie's asking for there, but we was talking here, in this one it says it's competitive in the regional market. But when you look at the market study we did, there's no county that touches Macon that was included in the survey. Jackson didn't respond.
But what I would say is that folks,
It's got to be public record, Jackson County.
we asked them to respond to the survey. They did not respond to our survey. We called them several times. What I would say in the market,
Jackson County response.
Your employees would have loved for Jackson.
Your employees would have loved to see Jackson County.
Maybe we should get Jackson County and add it in this. That's what we're asking. It would be that hard to do.
Make a great deal of difference in what these ranges came out to be, may make some. From my experience, and one information I've been finding out for Jackson County is probably when they put their last classification pay plan in place, they were much higher than most all surrounding counties.
And there's been no raise since 2008, so this is the part.
As Jackson County.
Is that something we could add?
But that, like you say, again though, I think Commissioner Tate had a good point. If you're looking at what it costs Jackson County as much, if not more than it costs Macon County, even though they're EMS employees. They don't really work for the county, but they have to pay another company to pay those people to do that. So it's kind of like the old smoke and mirrors game in the federal government. They said we're cutting back the number of employees, and basically what they did was reduce the number of employees to turn around and manufacture employees. And so they weren't really counting employees, they're still costing the same, if not more money. That's the point that Jimmy was trying to make.
And I think, following Jimmy's point, the same thing follows through the tax department is the same way. Where our tax department is revaluing a lot of other things, that's subbed out. The landfill, the number of employees in the landfill compared to what our enterprise system is, because they ship out. So it's a totally, we do it all. I mean, basically Macon County does,
You're a full service county.
we are that. Thanks to these folks behind us.
Is there a question? We're still attempting to get.
I'm just saying if that's,
But
I've heard a couple of three commissioners ask about this, but Jackson County, that was good.
we'll attempt to get that information, work with Mike on that. What I would say though, our experience in adding them into, basically some anecdotal stuff we have considered. Because of the broader pool, it'll affect it just a tad, but it's not gonna drive up.
But what you can do is look at it and say, if we add Jackson County in, it will bring it up slightly, it will bring it down slightly. You give us that information.
Yes, sir.
That would be fairly easy. That's fair. And then either.
Well, I just wondered if we're talking, I think the reason we're doing this, we're concerned that before we turn over and employees leaving, going somewhere, well, we're not gonna go to Blake or a person. Most of our employees have left, going to the city of Franklin. Yes, is that the least? Where do our employees go, Jim?
Jackson. That's what I'm saying, if that's the case, why don't we just get Jackson County information? Whatever we gotta do to get it, at least take a look at what it does to the
And if you can improve yourself, I run through a little business, and I used to be a county employee, and I know most of y'all appreciate what you do. Why do you even compare salaries to competitors? We never do that in the private sector. Why do you do it in the public sector?
We do. We compare salaries in the private sector for our company and other competitors, because we need to be competitive in the marketplace.
And that's a logical answer, In a recession, we're in a recession. I mean, I'm in the construction business. In Western North Carolina, our region is the tourism, real estate, construction industry, as opposed to the other Blade maybe, it's next to Pender, which is a big tourism area, but we're construction industry. When you start looking at the private sector, even my income, all these guys are in the private sector, some capacity, Ron is in construction. The market is way down. 0 to 60–80% down in income. And I appreciate what county employees do. I mean, they provide a vital service. And but this is we're still in a recession. And this is a tough call. It's tough. You're going to make.
And I understand that, and as I preface not to be argumentative, but as I preface my remarks, what we're beginning to see is the worms beginning to turn in the public sector. from the standpoint of compensation analysis. And what we saw in the public sector prior to the recession was a high demand for a lot of different types of employees. And what we've had during the recession is a lot of former public sector employees who have been reduced in force. They're no longer in the public sector and they're not willing to come back. So as the economy begins to improve, as people begin to retire or move to other localities, this compensation is better. We believe there's going to be a pretty strong shortage of public sector employees in a lot of locations, just like we had prior to the recession. And that's through a lot of analysis. So, you know, as you look, and I spoke to a group, just a little bit off topic, but just to give you some perspective, if you look at our age group, the 45, 55, 65 age group, deep down, I understand, and you move down 35 to 45, you move down 25 to 35. Each one of those age groups in the United States, those 10-year demographic groups, is a million people smaller. And so our group, I'm in the 55 to 65 group, is 2 million, the 25 to 35 group is about 4 million smaller total population than our senior age group. So there's a smaller pool to draw from. We're also seeing that because, it may not be true here in Macon County, because you seem to be a very stable board and a very considerate board, but in a lot of places, folks are working in local government and not appreciated, and their citizens don't appreciate the public service as well. So there's a lot of concern being expressed in the public sector now for lower level employees. Who wants to work in the public sector? You know, it's just not worth it to take the hassle, to take the harassment. It's no longer a stable place to be. The benefits aren't as good. And that's not Macon County. In many places we've seen the benefit packages have really been diminished. And so it's really not a good place to be for many folks who want to think about employment. And so we're seeing smaller employment or applicant pools. We're seeing a lot of folks who apply for a job, but not many people qualify. We call it a broad pool, but not a deep pool. And particularly in the areas of public safety, the standards for hiring are very great. If you look at the younger folks, the standards are very strict to become a sheriff's deputy or to become an EMS provider. And many of the younger folks now, particularly in some parts of the state, some parts of the country, they can't qualify at minimum standard because of arrest records. So it's there's a lot of challenges.
For drug tests.
Yes, sir. Yep, absolutely right.
Well, the reason that Macon County, and I don't know how much you know about Macon County, so the reason that we've been the leader in the far west for in a lot of ways. For tonight, we voted to buy state-of-the-art equipment for citizens or whatever we do. And you know why that is? Because we have a great employee. So if some of these employees retire, they move on, I think they might want to. You know, we've got to have it where it is competent. And yes, we're going to hear all this about the out in the private sector. It's true. What Paul said is true. I mean, it's been tough, but day in and day out, these people provide the services, whatever they might be. And you can look at other counties, and I tried to do that, and I made some calls to some other counties. And what you find out, you've got to plug in what these other counties sub out, which is not part of this survey. And when you start plugging that in, we'll be okay. And that's one thing that, just like Jackson County, there's many things that they serve that they sub out that we don't, that we do ourselves. So I think that after Mike gets to where we can read it a little bit better, I think this board will certainly take a good look at it with Kelly and see what we can do. The bottom line is you know, if you're on the lower end of the scale and you take the health insurance out of the equation, which you can't, but we should not have employees they have families too. Their families have been hurt. Their husbands have lost in the construction thing.
their employees in, so we can't make that all up. But, when you have a lot of new employees, that's well under the poverty line. We can do that. My opinion, you don't get that.
Mr. Chairman, I think one thing that kind of follows from Commissioner Real Estate, I think John has expressed it very well. What we're not looking to do in this classification pay plan is to give everybody a big raise. That's not the point at all. The point is to pay a fair wage for a fair day's work. And what we find out is that 55% of our employees are way below the minimum of what that fair day's work is. And if you look at the actual dollars and cents, over 80% of the cost of implementing this project is just to bring those people up to the minimum of that labor rate. The other 20% or less is for the 2% that's in there, but 80% of that money is to bring people up to the minimum. So they're not getting a lot more out of it. The other thing I think is important is when we started talking about doing this classification and pay study, the thing that crossed my mind is how you gonna pay them. So we knew it was impossible to say, well, we can pay for it, it's not you gotta do is raise taxes another penny or two. And that's not an option. I think the board made that very clear at our mid-year retreat that we're not gonna raise taxes this year. So since this project came out, we looked at ways how we can implement it, and it's not a one-time deal. In order to implement the classification of pay plan and increase the salaries like we're going to like these recent years, you got not only implement it, but you got to have a way to sustain that, because next year is going to be the same thing in the year after that and so forth. And so what we've looked at with the help of our finance director and so forth is to take a look at our budget and see, is there any way that we can, and we've been able to save some money doing refinancing and so forth. We've got some revenues that are coming up, and hopefully some will be coming up in July. But we mentioned that we do have a reasonable way the board implements this pay plan to sustain it after the first year, or the second year, or third year, whatever it might be. The recession is not going to last forever. And if we have to try to figure out what salary we ought to be paying after the recession goes, people finding other jobs, we're going to be way behind the eight ball. And so I hope that we're going to have county employees and all the other folks out there. I hope the board gives this favorable consideration. I think it's a fair study. It's not a perfect study. There's not one out there. John probably want to tell you that. I've been through these before, and we've looked it over and tried to find problems with it, punch holes in it, just like anybody else would. And it won't satisfy everybody that works for Macon County. But what it will do is show that this Board of County Commissioners has a commitment to provide quality service to the citizens of this county by employing people at a decent wage for a decent day's work. And so that's my speech, and I appreciate your
I'm gonna have to go. Anybody, real quick, we're gonna change the subject, John. They may keep you at midnight. I'm gonna leave.
It's quieter tonight.
We got meetings in the morning with the governor, the speaker, and does anybody have anything pressing that they want to check? Tell us, we got a bill or two that we definitely want to speak about.
Well, just so you know, I'm on email right back. He's on the state council, the Association of County Commissioners. I talked to our superintendent here, and also talked to Roger West and Jim Davis. We've got a situation. There's 3 K-12 schools in the state, right, Jack? 2. There's 2 in the state, and both of them are here. And the state allocates money for teachers in lots of 22 and 24. They assume it's everywhere it's like it is in flat country, but everybody, kids are born in lots of 24. But they work in that, they work in Iowa. So we're, on behalf of our school system, Mr. Duncan and I sort of talked about, we gave the information to our legislature, where they're going to introduce what they call local bill that would provide additional funding. We're having to pay those teachers in Nantahala out of local money because we don't have enough lots of 24 if we would pay them. So hopefully if that legislation passes, it will mean some additional. The state would pick up the bill rather than something that would get local, which would be significant amount of money. So that's something we're working really hard to try to.
And what we're gonna talk about tomorrow, if you think anything, you shoot me an email, but the real worry, forget the politics of it, the real worry is that 20 counties have so much more say-so than the 80 rural counties. We're in that 80 part. If our tier rating gets changed, if it changed, and that's been talked about now, so we're gonna talk about some of those things tomorrow, but in rural counties, we're worried about, and I don't know how we can turn it on. We'll have that discussion as long as they let me talk to them about how we do it. But we're really concerned about that, what would be passed down to the counties, even though I think we have a senator who's standing the gap off his hand. But I tell you, there's a real push for some things to be, that's the reason it worries us all about this upcoming budget.
And we've got, John's been kind of, I think there's a couple things that are stating the obvious. You either believe the results of the survey, you don't, you sort of do. If there's questions that you've got in regards to the legitimacy of this report, I think we'd ask those tonight. Because that's what I got. Ronnie?
There's no difference in
So, as I was saying, Ronnie, go. If you have any questions, I would just say, if you either believe the legitimacy of the report, you don't, you believe part of it. I think if there's anything we need to ask that would help clear up any part that you might have a question or concern about, we need to ask him while he's here. Because we're not going to be able to answer those questions once he's gone unless we talk. It's going to be much more difficult. And I think we need to, whatever we do on this, let's do it, don't do it, but we need to do it with the right information. So, with that said, do we have any more questions? We've asked him a lot, but there are other more questions. John, probably he's 6 feet from us.
Why are there so many gaps in the survey? There's a lot of things, a lot of positions that weren't even listed on the survey.
Well, I'll let him correct that. I'll tell him, is our register of deeds.
Okay, as I explained, we can't survey every position. We surveyed a cross-section of positions here in the county. We've got 174 different positions. We surveyed 79 and received responses from information on 67. And that included positions from entry-level positions down at manual labor type positions on up to department head positions and everything in between for all the departments.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you very well, face.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's the reason I called you.
Well, Jack, I learned a long time ago in politics, you run as an individual, but you govern as a board. So whatever we do as a board. I heard some questions. You got to have 3 votes to do anything. And I heard some questions tonight. I'm assuming those questions were, we would like to have the answers to that before we would vote yes. So I don't think we can do anything without the answers to the questions. So, I understand. I'm not trying to put it off. I'm just saying I don't think you got 3 votes to do anything yet. So I think we got a little more work to do and answer some questions. I mean, if you got more questions and you want to direct those to our county manager.
Let us know if you have a question, and we can get in touch with John or one of his staff and try to get you an answer as quickly as possible.
And just email it to him. Just don't send it to all of us and hit reply all. I mean, we don't do that. So, any other questions? Don't belabor the point. Thank you for coming. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure, Mr. Chairman.
And your expertise. You did an excellent job.
Thank you all very much.
Yes,
Always a
thank
pleasure
you
to
very
come out
much.
here. Witness wishes.
Yeah.
Do we all do?
Jack, that was last time I had on the agenda.
That was it. The only thing, two announcements is the recall we did have a joint meeting Thursday night, planning board at 6 o'clock, and then on the 26th, we have a joint meeting for Board of Education at 6 o'clock. This meeting, Mr. Chairman, I assume to be adjourned. The meeting Thursday is a special call meeting with the planning board, and the meeting with the school board is a special call meeting with them. We'll make sure that those notices are made properly. So this is your last, this is a continuation of your regular meeting, and so your next regular meeting then will be March the 12th.
So we'll adjourn this. Would announce, all of you know, be careful on the roads in the morning. There's supposed to be some bad weather today, but you may probably know more than I do about it. But we just got a text message up here that Highlands has already delayed school 2 hours in the morning. They just made that call. So looks like we have at least some type of weather coming in. Gentlemen, do we have a motion to adjourn? All in favor say aye. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Oh, my neck.
Oh.